Hey, y'all, welcome to this episode of What I Learned Today. All right, let's talk about loss without grief. Now, how is that even possible? Because usually we hear grief and loss together. And I'm going to speak to my personal experience, hence what I learned that day. Was when my father made his transition 7 years ago. My father stopped breathing and he made his physical transition. And what I felt in that moment was peace, relief, and release. I did not feel loss and I did not feel grief. All right. And so, but I understood that I had my father, as I had physically known him, was no longer present. So I recognized that there was loss, but I did not feel loss. All right. So my father had suffered from cancer, and towards the end of his physical existence, he was experiencing a lot of pain, and the medicine was not, working. It just wasn't subsiding it. Even the pain medicine wasn't working. And so my prayer was that he would be healed. And there was a very clear moment where I knew that it was a win win situation. And what I mean by that was my father was either going to be healed on this side, the physical, earthly realm, and he would no longer be experiencing any pain and he would be healthy, or he would be healed on the spiritual side of life and he would no longer be any pain and he would be healthy. And so it was literally me trusting the process and embracing the win win. And so, and handing him over in the situation over to God. And so going in alignment with my belief system, right? Knowing that he would be healed one way or the other, physically on the earth side, spiritually on the God side of things. And so he was released from the earthly pain, hence the release, right? I was at peace within myself because I experienced it as a win win situation, right? Because the ultimate goal was for my father to be in peace and at peace. Either way, it would go. And because I had come into that peace of mind, body, soul, spirit, that peace of being, I had released it all. When they say release it and turn it over to God, I had completely done that so that when he did take his last breath, I was able to, I had already released, right? I was able to experience relief because he was no longer suffering in any way, shape, or form. And therefore, I knew he was at peace and I was at peace. And because of that, I did not experience any grief. I also didn't experience any grief because I was in right relationship with my father. There was nothing else that I could have done. I did not have any regrets. I had spent at least 25 years making sure that we were in a good standing, good relationship. Now, just a little backstory. When I was in my early to mid 20s, I had attended a funeral and a son had lost his father. And he was grieving and he felt so regret. He had so much regret about the repair that did not occur within their relationship while his father was on this side, while his father was in his physical being. And I remember looking at that, and then I attended another funeral where it was women who had lost their father, and they were distraught. I mean, and it was one of those services where there was not a dry eye in the place, because these women were distraught, weeping and wailing. And I remember sitting in both of those services in my early to mid 20s and saying, I don't want to experience regret. I don't want to miss opportunities to have a great relationship with my father. Now, mind you, I always had a great relationship with my father, but I just did not want there to be any stone unturned, so to speak. And so I was very mindful about being in right relationship with people. And again, with my father, with my mother, friends, family, I became very conscientious about making sure my relationships were good and right. And therefore, when the day came where they were no longer physically present, I would not be filled with this regret that I would have to then work through. All right. So when that happened in regards to my father, I was like, I had done everything. I used to shop for them, whatever needed to be done. And I'm not saying I always did it joyfully. All right. But the point is, I did it so that when the loss, when the transition, when the physical presence was no longer present, I was not in a state of grief. Like I said, I experienced peace first, relief second, or release second, and then relief third. Because the other thing is, when my father was on hospice, we were taking turns around the clock. My mother also. So there was all of that. There was a place where finally we all could be in a state of rest, in a state of peace. So when you talk about rest in peace, it's also for those who are still living, the ability to fully rest in peace. And like I said earlier, knowing that my father was well, and they say all is well, it is well with my soul. It was well with my soul. And I remember doing his service, and that's a whole nother video. But I performed his service, organized his service, the whole bit. And someone came up to me at the end of the service, and they held my hands and they looked me in the eyes and they said, one day you'll be at peace. And I said, I'm at peace right now. And they looked at me and they said, oh my goodness, you are. And I said, yeah, I am. I'm fine. And so being able to know that you can have a loved one make their physical transition and be at peace with it, okay? And continue to have life after, quote unquote, death. All right. I hope that helps someone. As they say, I hope it blesses your soul. All right. And I'll see y'all real soon.